geometry students, Marsh here. So today we're going to look at ratio and proportions. What you're going to want to have on you today is your notes and then maybe a calculator to do some simplification of fractions, and then your Algebra 1 skills today too. Make sure before you do this video, please make sure you glue in your new divider for your notes. So in where Louisville, Kentucky, where they make bats. So they have this really big bat that's sitting down, and it's patterned after Babe Ruth's 35-inch bat. Now, this sculpture right now is 120 feet long. Now, this is actually proportional to his bat. They made sure that it's 120 feet long. We need to know that it's kind of neat how they were able to make that bat the same length if it had been that tall. So how did they do that? Well, they made it a ratio, and you may have heard the word ratio before. A ratio is a comparison of two things or two quantities. Something to keep in mind as well, guys. If you see this pencil in the corner over here, that is a reminder to write everything down that's on that slide, anything that's written or anything that I would write on there as well with my pen. A ratio can look in many different forms. Sometimes you'll see it as a fraction, and sometimes you'll see with a colon in the middle, right here, colon, in the middle of A to B. That's what you'll normally hear someone say. The ratio of something to something is something to something. You'll usually hear 2 in there. And something to keep in mind, you always want to reduce all of your ratios. Kind of like we reduce all of our fractions, we're going to reduce all ratios as well. So, if we look at a class, let's say there is a class with 16 girls in there, and there are 26 students in all. What is our ratio of boys to girls? So I want to know how many boys over how many girls. Right? Well, I know there's 16 girls, so I can actually put girls on number of girls on the bottom. Now, how am I going to find how many boys? Because there's not 26 boys, because there's 26 students, but 16 of them are girls. So I should be able to, right, go 26 minus 16. I should have 10 boys. So if I go 10 over 16, now I have the ratio of boys to girls, but it's not simplified. So what number can I divide into 10 and 16? I think a 2, right? You can divide 10 by 2 and 16 by 2. So I'd get 5 over 8. So my ratio is 5 to 8. So what does that mean? For every 5 boys, I'm actually going to have 8 girls. Same thing, I could write it like this as well. Both of these would be acceptable answers for answering that question. Now, what about my ratio of width to my length? So my width, I'm going to call the width of my rectangle right here. I'm going to call this my length of my rectangle, because if I stand him on his edge, that would be his length. That's how tall he would be. So I'm going to go my width, which is 10, right, to my length, which is 35. So if I, 10 over 35, what number can I divide into 10 and 35? I think it would be 5, right? So this would be 2 over 7. So my width to my length is 2 to 7, and I'm going to label that 2 feet to 7 feet. So for every 2 feet in width, I add 7 feet in length. Now, let's look at, so if we know that the actual bat, that bat we talked about in the beginning, is 35 inches, that's how long Babe Ruth's bat was, and the giant bat is 120 feet, what is this ratio of the sculpture to the real bat? So they want sculpture, whoop, if I could spell, my goodness, sculpture over bat. Okay, so sculpture was 120 feet over my actual bat was 35 inches. Now here's the thing though, I can't be talking feet to inches. I need to be talking feet to feet or inches to inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make feet go down to inches because I think that's going to be a lot easier. And I know that there's 12 inches in each foot. And if I have 120 feet, and each one of those has 12 inches inside of it, all I need to do is 120 times 12, which is 1,440. So technically what I have is 1,440 inches over 35 inches. Those are some really big numbers. I think a 5, I think I can divide a 5 out of both of these. Top I get 288, write it over here, 288 inches over 7 inches. The only number that I can divide into 7 is 7, so I wonder, does 288 divided by 7? It doesn't. So you know what? This is our ratio, 288 inches to 7 inches. So what does that mean? For every 7 inches on Babe Ruth's bat, it's 288 inches on the sculpture. Kind of like when you guys did dilations. That's ultimately what a ratio was a dilation. So sometimes we can have two fractions that are ratios that are going to be equal to one another. That is what's called a proportion. A proportion is when you equal two ratios. Now, you've solved proportions before. That's when you cross multiply, so you go A times D equals B times C, right? Multiply those two together. Let's try a pretty simple problem here. So I have 2 times 18, that'd be 36, equals x times 6. X times 6. Well, that would just be 6x, right? Because that's x times 6 or 6 times x if I want to call it that. Now I forget about this part and I'm like, oh, gotta solve this. So I gotta get x alone. Well, I know 6 and x were together by multiplication, so I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides. So I'm going to get 6 equals x, which is the correct answer. Alright, so now let's solve a harder proportion. So I'm going to first go 2 times b, which is just 2b. And then I got b plus 3 times 4. Well, I'm just going to write that out. 4 times b plus 3. There we go. Looks like that 4 needs to be distributed in. So I'm going to get 2b equals 4 times b, which is 4b. 4 times 3, which is 12. I need the b's on the same side, because right now I have 2 b's. So I'm going to subtract 4b from this side. That way the number 12 is alone over there. So I got 2b's minus 4b. That is a negative 2b. That's canceled out. I'm left with 12. Looks like I need to divide by negative 2 to get b alone. So b is equal to negative 6. And that is the correct answer. And that's the end of this video. See you later, Sabers.